Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. A Long Island man was arrested for murdering his father after having an argument in his Dix Hills home.
A Long Island man accused of murdering his own father, a retired Suffolk County police detective. Today, his 43-year-old son was in court to face charges. He pleaded not guilty to the murder, but says he is guilty of insanity. Long Island reporter Shantae Lands live outside the court in Central Islip with more. Shantae?
Well, David, John Jack Miller's orange pickup truck is still parked outside of his home. What started as a routine morning, prosecutors say quickly turned tragic for the retired homicide detective after they say his own son gunned him down inside their home. 43-year-old Christopher Miller leaves jail in handcuffs, saying nothing to reporters but having plenty to say in Suffolk court at his arraignment after prosecutors say he shot and killed his own father, retired Suffolk County homicide detective and Wyandanch fire chief John Jack Miller.
Wonderful neighbors, the most wonderful family. I can't say enough about them. And, you know, Jack's record speaks for himself. And yesterday was a very disturbing day for us all.
This quiet cul-de-sac turned into a crime scene. Suffolk County police investigating the murder of one of their own. Prosecutors say Chris Miller shot 75-year-old Jack Miller 4 times inside their kitchen.
It's just very shocking. It's just unbelievable. It really is.
Prosecutors say a neighbor's surveillance camera captured Miller running down Bruno Lane in Dix Hills from his father's home. He was found hiding in a neighbor's shed on Seaman Neck Road. The responding officer recognized him because his father reported him missing a day earlier on Tuesday because he was in a hospital after a crash. Prosecutors say the officer then drove Miller back home. They both went inside, where prosecutors say the officer saw Jack Miller lying in the kitchen in a pool of blood. They say the officer tackled Chris Miller and arrested him. He was charged with second-degree murder.
I think some of the friends reached out to him over the past year, and he had a little depression, and they were trying to get him to socialize, and it wasn't working.
Prosecutors say Miller gave a full videotaped confession. Miller was heard initially telling the judge he was guilty by insanity and that he didn't feel comfortable with his court-appointed lawyer. After briefly speaking with the assigned attorney, Dan Russo, he then changed his plea to not guilty.
Somebody who's obviously going through something traumatic. I don't know if it's psychiatric or some other health concern, but he's certainly going through something.
Investigators believe that Chris Miller is in the middle of a divorce. If convicted on the second-degree murder charge, he faces up to 25 years to life in prison. Live in Dix Hills, Shantae Lands, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Now, according to reports, 43-year-old Christopher Miller allegedly shot and killed his 75-year-old father, John Jack Miller, after having an argument with him inside of his Dix Hills home. Now, Christopher Miller went to go live with his father after a divorce from his wife, and as he was living with his father, he was having a lot of friction with his father, and went out and on one day and had an accident with his vehicle. And after having this accident with his vehicle, this is when John Jack Miller became concerned and filed a missing persons report. And after filing the missing persons report, Christopher Miller soon came home, and this is where Christopher Miller wound up having an argument with his father, John Jack Miller. And as he was having this argument, he allegedly picked up a shotgun, pointed it at his father, and fired the shotgun at his father's head, taking his life. Now, after participating in this crime, Christopher Miller then contacted police, then gave a full videotaped confession to this crime, and was taken into custody, and wanted to tell the judge after being taken into custody that he was pleading guilty by insanity, and then later made a plea of not guilty. Now, the police in Dix Hills, Long Island, and Suffolk County see the behavior of Christopher Miller as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged behavior Christopher Miller participated in, it definitely fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And when it comes down to some of these beta males and divorce, it can basically have a serious impact on them overall and make it where their behavior can change from being social behavior to antisocial behavior and turn these males from being males who can go out here and present a semblance of functionality to winding up becoming ticking time bombs, because these men basically are deeply frustrated about being humiliated and emasculated by being divorced by their wives. And since they're feeling humiliated and emasculated by being divorced by their wives in the family courts, this can lead to these men becoming extremely volatile and extremely dangerous. And that's what I believe happened here in the case of Christopher Miller. Christopher Miller, possibly after his wife wound up divorcing him and he wound up possibly losing everything in that divorce, was simmering and boiling in anger about the way he wound up losing everything he worked for in his life as related to that marriage, and it possibly felt again emasculated and humiliated to the point where he had to go back to live with his father inside of his home. And being made to go back to his father in and of itself, that was humiliating enough for Christopher Miller. But what possibly exacerbated the situation was he was coming back under the authority of his father, and coming back under the authority of his father possibly made a already frustrating situation even more frustrating, because according to reports, Christopher Miller was living with his father inside of this home. It was just the two of them by themselves. And this odd coupling of these two men basically created a situation where the father thought he could again assert authority because this was his home and his property, and the son was feeling so powerless. And as the son was feeling powerless, he basically possibly was looking to cope with that feelings of powerlessness, looking to escape through things like possible drinking or possible overwhelm. He was possibly overwhelmed with stress from this divorce, and possibly as he was dealing with this stress, was simmering and boiling in anger, about losing his everything as related to his marriage, losing everything as related to his life, as related to having a functional life. And this possibly again led to him becoming deeply frustrated to the point where he could not focus because he had already felt powerless about being emasculated, felt powerless about being humiliated in the family courts, and felt even more powerless because his father basically was going to have him in his home just like he was when he was a child, and he was not in a situation where he could be the man he wanted to be. And with him in a place where he felt like he could not be the man he wanted to be, this is what led to Christopher Miller again seething with anger. And possibly what happened was, as he was seething with anger, he got in a car crash on Stony Brook on St. Patrick's Day. This is what has me believing he was drinking, and then got in a fight with another driver and was taken to the hospital for treatment. And as Christopher Miller didn't return home, this is where his father got concerned. And as his father got concerned, what happened was he wound up in a place where he eventually met with his father. And again, his father basically again had this argument about him losing more control as related to his whole situation of his deteriorating life. And this possibly what it did was go out here and lead to Christopher Miller again being in a place where he wound up again exploding in a rage where he acted on his impulses. And as he acted on his impulses, this is where he picked up a shotgun and shot his father in the head. And again, shooting his father 4 times. I mean, this was just complete, absolute evil at this point. But this is what happens with beta males, because again, they have a lot of rage inside of them because they feel powerless. And what happened with Christopher Miller is he was looking to take power, but in that effort to sate his feelings, he wound up doing damage to his whole family, because he took the life of the one person who cared about him the most and tried to help him overall, looked out for his safety, and now he's gone from being a man who was struggling as related to this divorce to pick up the pieces of his life, to winding up with all of those pieces falling completely apart, because that whole argument that he's trying to present, we're talking about how he was again insane, is not going to fly. No, it's not going to fly, because it's clear that he acted on his impulses, cleared that he acted again with a sound mind, because if he can go out here and confess to this crime, again, there's no insanity, because insanity would say that this man had issues as related to logic. But what happened here is a case of, again, beta male rage, and with beta male rage, it's usually something that these men do clearly from a calculating perspective, and again from a calculating perspective where they again are angry and want to sate those feelings on an impulse. But that's not insanity, because insanity would show that he had a series of illogical behaviors before this and would have to be dealt with a professional psychologist. But what's happening here with Christopher Miller is he's basically gone from being a free man who was a son of a police officer to winding up being in a place where he will regret being, because he's now going from the authority of his father, who is no longer with us, to the authority of the COs, and will be under the social pecking order of Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and will be traded his dignity and self-respect for commissary items like Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light tea, off-brand lemon lime drink, off-brand orange drink, off-brand grape drink, off-brand fruit punch, off-brand apple juice, off-brand lemon lime drink, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand duplex cookies, off-brand vanilla wafers, off-brand ginger snaps, off-brand sugar wafers, Hunt's snack pack puddings, pork cracklins, Velveeta cheese, packets of soy sauce, packets of sriracha sauce, hot and sour ramen noodles, Fritos chips, prison chips, as nasty as they are, Kit Kat candy bars, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies. What's going to happen is Christopher Miller is going to go from a divorce from his wife to winding up being married to guys like Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and basically winding up getting himself spit roasted in the front side and the back side, and have Mr. Sprinkles eventually come in after they finish spit roasting him, and then spray the front side and the back side with his special sauce, and then call all the guys from Cell Block D to check out his backside as he splits the cheeks open and has it looking like the inside of Louisiana crunch cake. And this, sadly, is the fate that this man is going to go through as a man who went through a crisis. He basically, again, made a crisis worse as related to coming out of a divorce, because he did no critical thinking, and because he did no critical thinking about his situation and got caught up in his feelings. What happened with this guy, again, the son of a police officer, is that he went from being a free man because he didn't think about more important things like his intangibles of manhood, like his dignity, his self-respect, and his freedom, because he was caught up in his feelings. And now he's going from being a free man to winding up in this penitentiary for the rest of his life. And we'll have to lament that the reason he's there is because he took the life of the man who brought him in this world, a man who loved him enough to open up his home and let him come back in his home. And instead of him showing love to his father and gratitude to his father by again, navigating through his emotions. Yes, his father may have been disappointed that his situation was this bad. I know about this because I had the same situation when I lost my job in 2008, and my father was upset about me not having a job and was deeply concerned, but I understood that I had to navigate through my emotions as related to things because, yes, my father was upset, but I could not let my emotions, again, rule me, even though I was in a I'm still in a very stressful situation. Again, I wanted to have that full-time job to be able to show him that I could be competent. That was something that meant something to me. And I understand where this guy is coming from as a man, but the whole thing is you can't let your emotions get the better of you, because if you let your emotions get the better of you, you can go from being a free man in a stressful situation that you could possibly pick yourself out of to winding up in a penitentiary for the rest of your life in a situation where you wind up jammed up in a way where you wind up a man in crisis for the rest of your life inside of a penitentiary. And sadly, that's the fate that's going to befall Christopher Miller. He's going to have to, again, as he's in prison, live and regret the fact that he took the life of his father, the one man that he loved, because he was angry about his ex-wife and all these other situations. He basically, again, took the life of the man who brought him into this world, and now is in a place where he can't get out, a place he can't get out as related to the consequences of his actions. And that's the whole sad part about this story regarding this tragic shooting as related to this man who basically was a man in crisis due to the divorce crisis that's going on in this country, where women basically, again, file for no-fault divorce and basically destroy the life of a man. But the whole thing is these men have to get discipline and self-control so that they don't wind up going from men who are dealing with a divorce to winding up being in a situation where they're in prison as a man in crisis. Now, if you want to learn how to identify the behavior of beta males and basically help them be able to break out of that pattern of behavior, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers, and hopefully this book will help transform the life of a man in your life and help them avoid a great tragedy, or help them to continue to move their life forward. And if you want to see me make more videos about The Man Crisis, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.